My name's Jake, I'm 33, and if there's one thing people would say about me, it's that I'm dependable. Always was. Growing up, I was the kid who did his homework on time, the one who remembered birthdays, the one who didn't cause trouble. My younger brother Eric, on the other hand, was the opposite. Charismatic, reckless, always sliding out of problems while my parents looked at him like he was some kind of miracle. It became a pattern. He'd mess up, they'd rush to defend him. I'd step in, pay for the fallout, and no one really noticed. When Dad's hours got cut a few years back, I helped cover their mortgage. When the car broke down, I paid for the repairs. When Mom needed new medication, I picked up the tab. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept them afloat. And honestly, I didn't mind, at least, not at first. I thought that if I just kept showing up, kept helping, one day they'd really see me. Not as the quiet, responsible one in the background, but as a son they were proud of. But what I got instead were little jabs dressed up as jokes. "Jake, you're so serious, loosen up. Oh, we figured you'd be busy, you're always working." I swallowed it all. I smiled, shrugged, let it roll off my back. Because family is family, right? But the illusion shattered one evening. It was just a regular Sunday dinner, nothing fancy. Mom had roasted chicken, Dad was already on his second beer, and Eric, of course, showed up late, empty-handed as always. He sat down, loud and full of himself, telling stories about some new business idea that sounded like every other scheme that went nowhere. And then, out of nowhere, Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You know what the problem is with you, Jake," he said, his voice rising. "You've never given this family anything." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Never given anything. The words hit me like a punch. My chest tightened, and I just sat there, staring at him, waiting for someone, anyone, to speak up. But Mom just looked down at her plate. Eric smirked into his drink. And I realized I was completely alone. The room went quiet, except for the ticking clock on the kitchen wall. I felt heat crawling up my neck, my ears ringing. "Excuse me," I finally said, my voice sharper than I intended. Dad leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms like he'd been waiting years to say it. "You sit there acting like you're some big shot, but you've never really given us anything that matters. Eric," he pointed with his beer bottle. "Eric shows up. He spends time with us. He's here when we need him. You just throw money at problems and think that makes you part of this family." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind that comes out when you're 1 second away from snapping. "Throw money? Dad, who do you think paid this month's mortgage? Who paid for your car repair last spring? Who covered Mom's prescriptions when the insurance didn't?" Mom shifted in her chair, like she wanted to speak but didn't dare. Dad just waved his hand. "That's not giving. That's just handling numbers. Anybody can do that. Anybody." My voice cracked. Then why didn't Eric? Eric finally looked up from his glass, smug grin plastered on his face. "Hey, don't drag me into this. I'm not the one keeping score." That was rich coming from him. Not keeping score? He hadn't contributed a dime in years. He lived rent-free, ate their food, drove their car when it suited him. And somehow, I was the selfish one? I felt something inside me snap. 4 years, I'd bitten my tongue, convinced myself it wasn't worth the fight. But hearing my dad dismiss everything I'd done, everything I'd sacrificed, lit a fire I couldn't put out. I put my fork down carefully, like if I moved too fast, I'd explode. "You know what, Dad? You're right. Maybe I haven't given you anything. Maybe paying for your roof, your bills, your food. Maybe that means nothing. But if that's the case, then you won't mind if I stop. Starting now. The silence that followed was heavy. Mom's eyes shot up, wide with panic. Eric snorted like he thought I was bluffing. And Dad just narrowed his eyes. You wouldn't dare, he muttered. But I already knew I would. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. My hands were trembling, but not from fear anymore, from anger I'd buried for years finally clawing its way out. You think I wouldn't dare? I said, my voice steady now. Try me. Eric leaned back, smirking like he'd just won. Go ahead, Jake. Walk away. Let's see how long it takes before you come crawling back. You've always been dramatic. I turned to him, and for the first time in years, I didn't see my little brother. I saw a leech, someone who had drained me dry while smiling in my face. Crawling back. I repeated, almost laughing. Eric, you don't even crawl forward. You sit around waiting for life to hand you everything, and Mom and Dad let it happen. I've been the one keeping this house standing while you play pretend with your little business ideas. His face darkened, but before he could fire back, Dad slammed his hand on the table again. That's enough. We are not doing this at dinner. No, I shot back, standing tall now. We are doing this. Because I'm done pretending everything's fine while I bleed myself dry for a family that looks me in the eye and says I've given nothing. Mom's voice wavered. Jake, please sit down. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Do you know how many nights I've stayed up wondering if I could cover everything? How many times I skipped vacations, skipped things I wanted, because I was bailing this family out. And now you look me in the face and tell me I've given nothing. The room was dead silent, but I felt years of weight lifting as the words spilled out. Dad's jaw tightened. Money doesn't mean love. Neither does exploitation, I snapped. And that's what this has been, me being your safety net while you hand Eric the praise. Well, congratulations. Starting today, you'll get to see what life looks like without me footing the bill. Eric rolled his eyes, but I caught the flicker of panic in Mom's expression. She knew I meant it. And for once, so did I. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and headed for the door. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't weakness, it was adrenaline. The kind that comes when you finally stop letting people walk over you. Behind me, Dad barked. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. I froze for half a second, my hand on the doorknob. Then I turned, looked straight at him and said, Good. Saves me the trouble. The words hung heavy in the air. Mom gasped quietly. Eric laughed under his breath, muttering, Drama queen. I left without slamming the door, without another word. The night air hit my face like a slap, cold and sharp, but it felt cleaner than anything I'd felt in years. That first week, I expected the calls. And sure enough, they came. At first, little texts from Mom. Jake, your father didn't mean it that way. Then the guilt-tripping. We're still your family. You can't just abandon us. But I didn't answer. Not once. 2 weeks later, the tone shifted. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Mortgage is due. Handle it. I stared at the screen, a bitter laugh escaping me. No, please, no apology, not even a hint of gratitude. Just an order, like I was still their personal ATM. For the first time in my life, I didn't cave. I typed back, not my house. Ask Eric. It took less than 5 minutes for Mom to call, her voice frantic. Jake, please, don't do this. We'll lose everything if you don't help. I closed my eyes, the words cutting deep. But not for the reason she thought. We'll lose everything if you don't help. She still didn't see me as a son, just as a safety net. Then you should have thought about that before you told me I gave nothing, I said, my voice flat. And I hung up. For the first time in years, the weight wasn't on me anymore. But I had no idea just how ugly it was about to get. The silence lasted about a week before Eric finally chimed in. His name popped up on my phone one night, and before I even opened the message, I knew it was going to be smug. Dude, why are you acting like this? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like always. I almost laughed. Not a big deal? After years of covering for all of them, my father spat in my face and called me worthless. But sure, not a big deal. I typed back, you're the favorite, remember? Time to step up. A few minutes later, his reply came, oh my God, are you seriously mad about Dad's comment? Grow up. It's just words. You've got a good job, you don't even need the money. My grip tightened around my phone. The hypocrisy was suffocating. To Eric, it was just money, because it was never his. He'd never skipped rent, never cut corners to make sure someone else's lights stayed on. I shot back, then it shouldn't be a problem for you to pay the mortgage. Consider it practice. This time, he didn't answer. The next morning, Mom sent another guilt-soaked text. Jake, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. Don't abandon us after everything we did for you growing up. I had to set the phone down to stop myself from throwing it across the room. Abandon them. I'd spent years being their crutch, their fixer, their provider, while Eric coasted through life on their praise. And the moment I drew a line, suddenly I was the selfish one. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I felt something shift. Not guilt. Not shame. Something else. A calm certainty. They had made their choice. They'd told me I was nothing, that I'd never given them anything. Fine. I'd believe them. I'd stop giving. And that's when their world, not mine, began to crumble. 3 weeks later, I came home to a string of missed calls and voicemails. Dad's voice boomed in one. Jake, enough of this nonsense. The bank is breathing down our necks. You think you're proving a point? You're just being selfish. Get over yourself and pay the damn bill. Another message followed from Mom, softer but sharper in its own way. Honey, we raised you. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? By turning your back when we need you most. That word again, repay. Like my whole life had been a loan, and now they were demanding interest. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat on my couch in the dark, listening to the city hum outside my window. For years, I thought love meant sacrifice. That if I just kept giving, eventually they'd see me, value me, choose me. But hearing those messages, all I felt was clarity. They never wanted me. They wanted what I could provide. A few days later, Eric finally cracked. He showed up outside my apartment unannounced, pounding on the door like a debt collector. When I opened it, he stormed in without asking. What the hell is wrong with you, Jake? Mom's crying every night. Dad's furious. They're talking about selling the house, and you're just sitting here like nothing's happening. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Why don't you handle it? You live there. You eat their food. You've got plenty of time between your business ventures. His face turned red. Don't start. You're acting like money is everything. No, I said quietly, but firmly. Money isn't everything. But it sure as hell pays for the roof over their heads, the one I've been covering while you contributed nothing. For the first time, Eric didn't have a comeback. He just stood there, jaw tight, eyes flickering. And I realized he was scared. Not for them, but for himself. If the house went, so did his free ride. And for once, I wasn't going to save him. Eric finally broke the silence with a sneer. You're pathetic, you know that? Acting like some martyr because you paid a few bills. Newsflash, Jake, family isn't about money. I let out a bitter laugh. You're right. Family is about showing up, supporting each other, pulling your weight. Tell me, Eric, when's the last time you paid for groceries? Or chipped in for mom's meds? Or did literally anything other than eat, sleep, and brag? His jaw clenched. I give them my time. I'm there for them. You mean you're there to drain them, I snapped. But go ahead, keep pretending your presence is worth more than the years I spent bailing them out. His face twisted, and for a second, I thought he was going to swing at me. Instead, he jabbed a finger in my chest. You've always been jealous. That's the real problem. You can't stand that they love me more. The words stung, not because they weren't true, but because he said them like it was a weapon. I stepped back, steadying my voice. No, Eric. I'm not jealous. I'm free. For the first time in my life, I'm not carrying you, or them. If they want to put everything on you, fine. Enjoy it. I opened the door, gesturing for him to leave. Because I'm done being the family's wallet. He hesitated, his mouth opening like he wanted to say something else. But nothing came out. He stormed past me, muttering under his breath, and the door slammed shut behind him. The silence that followed was different this time. Lighter. Cleaner. Like I'd just cut off a weight I'd been dragging for years. But peace never lasts long in a family built on denial. Because the very next day, Dad showed up. I heard the knock before I saw him. Heavy, deliberate, the kind of knock that said, "Open up or else." When I pulled the door back, Dad was standing there, arms crossed, his jaw set like stone. "Can we talk?" he said flatly. I stepped aside, though every instinct told me not to. He walked in like he still owned the place, like I was still a teenager under his roof instead of the man who'd been paying for his. "You've made your point," he started, pacing across my living room. "You're upset. Fine. But this has gone on long enough. The bank's threatening foreclosure. Your mother is a wreck. Do you really want her health on your conscience?" I stared at him, stunned at the audacity. "My conscience," I repeated slowly. "You looked me in the eye and told me I never gave you anything. And now you're here, asking me to save you, again." He stopped pacing, meeting my eyes with that same dismissive look I'd grown up with. "Words, Jake. You're too sensitive. I didn't mean it like that." I laughed bitterly. "You meant it exactly like that. You've meant it my whole life." His voice hardened. "Family takes care of each other. That's what this is about." "No," I said sharply. "Family doesn't exploit one kid while handing the other a free ride. Family doesn't use someone until they break, then call them selfish when they finally stop." For a moment, he didn't respond. His lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Doubt. But it lasted only a second. He straightened, puffing out his chest. "You'll regret this, Jake. When we're gone, you'll wish you had done more." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "I already did more. You just never cared enough to notice." The silence stretched, thick and tense. And then he turned, walked to the door, and left without another word. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt empty. But I didn't know then that the real breaking point was still coming. Weeks passed. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally leave me alone. But then one evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "Jake, this is Brooke's dad. We need to talk." Brooke, Eric's fiancée. My stomach sank. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. When I called back, his voice was firm but calm. "I don't know what's going on in your family," he said. "But I do know this. I've seen enough to realize you're not the problem. Eric is." That floored me. This man barely knew me. Yet somehow, he saw through the act my parents had been blind to for decades. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. He sighed. "Because your father came to me, asking for money to help with the wedding costs. Claimed you'd abandoned them. Then Eric told me you're selfish, unreliable, and jealous. But after the way they treated you at dinner," he paused, "I don't buy it." A bitter laugh slipped out of me. "So now I'm the villain in their story and the scapegoat for their bills." "I don't think you are," he said firmly. "And for what it's worth, I respect what you did. Drawing boundaries. I wish my daughter saw it too." That conversation stuck with me. For the first time, someone outside the family validated what I'd known all along. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I'd been used. A week later, word spread, Eric and Brooke's engagement was off. Rumors flew, but I didn't need to hear the details. All I knew was that Brooke's father had seen what my parents refused to. And then, one night Dad called. Not angry. Not demanding. Just tired. His voice cracked as he said, "Jake, we might lose the house." I closed my eyes. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for my whole life, the mask finally slipping, the truth laid bare. And for once, I held the power. I let the silence stretch on the line. Dad's breathing was heavy, ragged, like the weight of years was finally catching up to him. "We might lose the house," he repeated, softer this time. For a long moment, I said nothing. My chest was tight, not with guilt, but with a strange mix of anger and release. This was the house I'd saved again and again. The one I'd kept standing when they couldn't. And here he was, finally admitting he couldn't do it without me. "Jake," he added, his voice almost breaking. "We need you." The words I'd wanted my whole life. And yet, hearing them now, I realized they weren't about love. They weren't about me. They were about survival. About money. I took a deep breath. "Dad, you told me I never gave you anything. You looked me in the face and erased years of sacrifice with one sentence. And now you're asking me to give more." On the other end, silence. "I can't," I said finally. "Not anymore. You chose to see me as nothing. So now, you get to live with that choice." "Son," he started, but I cut him off. "No. Eric is your golden boy. Let him step up for once. Let him prove all that love wasn't wasted." And with that, I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not from the house, not from the bills, but from the chains I'd wrapped around myself, thinking love could be bought with sacrifice. Weeks turned into months. They didn't lose the house. Somehow, they scraped by. But the calls stopped. The texts stopped. The guilt trips ended. And me. I finally started living for myself. Vacations I'd never taken. Projects I'd always put off. Friends I'd neglected because I was too busy playing savior. I wasn't the family's wallet anymore. I was just Jake. And for the first time, that was enough.